The person we're going to talk about today was one of the greatest writers in the history of English literature, Charles Dickens. He lived during Victorian times, which we talked a bit about in the video on Sherlock Holmes. More than any other writer, it was Dickens that represents this time in British history, and his descriptions of London at the time have shaped how we see our own history. Dickens was born in 1812 in Portsmouth, which is a city on the south coast of England. His parents had 8 children, and he was the second. His family wasn't very rich, and in 1822 they moved to a poor area of London. Dickens's father spent a lot more money than he earned, and he fell into a large amount of debt. His father was sent to prison because he couldn't pay this debt back. This meant that the family didn't have enough money to support itself, and the young Dickens had to leave school and go out to find work. He had to work in a factory, and it was hard work for little pay. His childhood was cut short, and he would write about these experiences in his books. Late in his life, Dickens would wonder how I could be so easily cast away at such a young age. When his father got out of prison, Dickens went back to school for a bit, but he had to leave again later to look for another job. His next job was as a helper in an office. He had to write a lot, and this was really the start of his career as an author. Less than a year after getting this job, he was sent out to write reports on what was happening at the courts in London, stories to do with the law and the legal system. Not long after this, he'd changed job again and moved up in the world. He next became a journalist for some of the most important newspapers in London. In 1833, he became the journalist who covered what happened in the British Parliament. At the same time, he also started working as the publisher for a magazine. In this magazine, he started to publish some of his own fiction, some of his own novels. The first one was Oliver Twist, which is one of Dickens's most famous and popular works. This is the story of a poor boy without parents, an orphan, who lives on the streets of London. While trying to survive, he has all kinds of adventures, including meeting some of the criminals working in London at the time. The book wasn't published as one whole book. Because it was in a magazine, there was a new part of the story, published every week or every month. The book became so popular that people couldn't wait to get the newest edition of Dickens's magazine. Publishing the books in this way gave Dickens the chance to change the story as he went along. He listened to the feedback that he got from his readers, and he could change the story based on what they thought. Because of this style of publishing, however, to keep his readers happy, he had to keep writing more and more, so his books can be extremely long. His first book was so successful that Dickens decided to become an author full-time. Over the next few years, he wrote many popular books, including more fiction, some autobiography, and some special stories for Christmas. In the 1850s, Dickens had a few deaths in his family, and his writing became a bit more dark and cynical. In his books, he took a more critical view of society at the time. By the end of the decade, however, his writing became a bit lighter and happier again. He wrote one of his most famous books, A Tale of Two Cities, which tells the story of the time around the French Revolution in 1789. He then wrote what people now think is his greatest book, Great Expectations. Dickens also thought this was his best work. Aside from writing novels, he was also busy doing other things. He wrote travel books too, and went on tours around Italy and America. While he was in America, he gave some lectures. Because he was so popular, people paid large amounts of money to hear him talk. In his lectures, he talked about how evil slavery was. He was also the head of some charities. Dickens died in 1870. He was buried at Westminster Abbey, which is an honour only given to the greatest people in British history, like Darwin and Newton. Along with Shakespeare, Dickens is still seen as one of the greatest authors in the English language.